Hilchas Ishus Perek Shivaser. Misha Yenosui Noshim Rabbis Umes. So they're all coming to Mandir Kesubah. And the Chiyuv, the Chiyuv Bepel was chal by all of them together. But nevertheless, Kol Shenisaz Betchila, the one that got married early, is Kidamas Little Kesubah. Her Shibud comes first. Whereas the Chales Shibud is chal when they get married by the Nesuyin. The Schus HaTfiyah is later. It's like a Chayiv, that the Chales Shibud is chal when the Malva lends it to the Leva. Masha'inkin, the Schus HaTfiyah, there's a certain, they made up a certain amount of time when the Malva could mun. But he muns from the Zman of when the Chayiv was given, because that's when the Shibud was chal. So Aldera is over here by Isha. The Shibud was chal b'shas HaNesuyin. The Schus HaTfiyah is later. So Memela, so since she has an earlier Shibud, so therefore she's entitled to it first. The Ein Achas, that's the nom. Kol Shenisaz B'tchila Kidam is little Kesubah. So she comes first because her Shibud is first. The Ein Achas Mem Nitel is Ela B'Shvua, and each one has to take B'Shvua. The Ein Lachrein, because the pastor said, Aboli Ligbis Menichsi Yisem needs a Shvua. The Ein Lachrein Ela Mashashir Shalafanel. The only thing that the second one has, or the last one has, is what the one before is left over. And those, the first one has first rights, and even if there's not enough left over for both, so nevertheless, she only has what's left over. And Vigam Hi Nishbas, she also has to swear. V'nitelis Ashar, and she takes the rest. So that's the Kitzur. If you have, let's say, more than one Isha, so the one that got married first, she has first rights. And then the second one gets, if there's something left over, the second one gets. If there's not enough of both of them, so the first one gets, and then the second one gets. The Chain, Im Hoyol of Shtar Chev, is Im Hoya Chev Kedem, is Geva Bal Chev Tchila. Im Haksuba Kodma, Geva Isha Betchila, Vahanishal Bal Chev. So no, the din is the first Shibud gets the rights first. You don't have to divide. Later on, we're going to din if they both have the Shibud on the same time, so then there's a division. Mashenkin over here, if one has a Shibud earlier, so Memela, so that that person has first rights. Now the Rambam says the Ein Achas Mem Nitelis Ela B'Shvua, and also the Ein Lachreina Al Mashashir L'Shalfana V'Gam Hi Nishbas. What's the Chiyuv Shvua B'Pashtus is because Aboli Parim Nichsi Yisem. What's the Chiddush? The Ein Achas Nitelis Ela B'Shvua. So Tesis in Kesubah says, which is a Chiddush, and Rambam doesn't say Mefurish, but that the Chiyuv Shvua is not only klapi the Yisemim, it's also klapi each other. In other words, when a woman, let's say there's two fields. So one woman is taking the field. They're taking each a field. So there's a concern that you're taking the field, it'll be mineh from the other woman. If the first one takes a field, so she has to swear klapi the Yisemim, l'chei l'reish. But what happens if the Yisemim mavater on the shvua? So she has to also swear klapi the second. No, she's taking a field, and she's like taking it away from the second, which could also take it. And so Memela, she has to swear towards the second. Now the second, the chura, she's already, what's left over, she's taking. But there's a svara that the first one is tying to the second. Listen, by you taking away the second, and you're going to ruin the second, maybe. So then if at the end it comes out that, let's say the field that I took wasn't really the Yisemims. Let's say it'll be Nizbara that it wasn't really theirs. So then I'm going to have to go to the second, and you already have it, and maybe there'll be a problem. So Memela, before you take the second, Tain is the first, I want you to swear. So L'chura, that she has a schus hashvua, that she has a schus to man hashvua. So that's the chiddush, that's how Tesis learns. That she has a schus to man from the second hashvua, and the second has a schus to man from the first hashvua, because she's taking away the field. So besides the schus hashvua of the Yisemim, there's another schus of hashvua that the women towards each other, and that's the chiddush over here. They nachas mem nitelas ela b'shvua towards each other. Now derav zeh achreina also v'gam hin nishbas v'nitelas hashar. It's like a chiddush that there's a chiyuv shvua from one woman towards the other woman. But that's what it says. Halacha beis. B'med dvarim amurim kshehoisa hakarka shebo ligbis mimeno k'duya loy b'shas nesuyim b'shos shalom. So if when he married the woman, or when he borrowed the money, so at that point in time he had karka, so there became a shibud on that karka. And later on, when he gets married, so the second wife already on this karka there was already a previous shibud. because at that point in time there was only a shibud of the first person, either the first wife or the first borrower. And then or velova ben kedim nesuyin ben acher nesuyin. So he has wives that he owes a ksubah to, and he has a lender that lent him money. After he married and after he borrowed money, is kana karka. So at that point in time, the shibud was chal on the karka of all of them. Bebasachas is kulan chelkin kechot. So now when they come to mon, they mon together. Shibud kulan kechot bo, because the shibud came at the same time when he bought the karka. That's when the shibud became. Shebishosh shekana hayim shubud lakel. There's no din kedima. There's no din kedima. The same thing would apply. Let's say if a person, married a woman, and then he bought karka, and then he married another woman. It's lav dafka if the karka was there when he got married. If let's say he got married and then he bought karka, so Mimela at that point in time there was only a shibud to the first wife. Now he got married again, or he borrowed money. So then at that point in time the shibud was there already. The point is the shibud was there before the next loan, before the next marriage. So Mimela, on that shibud, that's considered a first shibud. Mimela, he's entitled to the first rights of taking from that karka. Halacha Gimel v'chein im hoye zman aksubis v'ashtoris kulam yemechot. It was all written on the same day. Oisho achas b'mokum shekes m'shoy. So it was written the same hour. Is chil ken keachot shein shom kedim. So Memela, there's no din kedima. This whole din that we learned earlier was if someone has an earlier shibut. That's the chiddush. That's when a person has a shibut, so he's entitled to first rights in this karka. Masha'inkin, if they both had the shibut at the same time, so then chilkin keachot she'en shom kedim. Ule'elam kol shekodam v'zoche b'metalton kedei chevei kedei kesubah se'en mitzim miyodei she'en din kedima b'metalton. There's no musig of a shibut on metalton. So therefore, even though the chatchila, if they both come together to mon, so there's a dinam of how you pay both of them. But if one of them got paid first, somehow or another, the person was zachib b'metalton kedei chevei kedei kesubah, so memela, so they have the money. So memela, no one can have kindness to them. Because when you have a shibut, so you can say, let's say there's two balchevas, and each one, the one balchev had an earlier shibut, and the second balchev got paid from this karka. So the first balchev can kind of listen. My shibut came first. I'm entitled to it. A shibut gives you a first entitlement. It's like a first lien on a property. Masha'in came, if there's no musig of a lien, it's metaltalin. So whoever got it. And aldera is even by karka. L'moshel, if they all have an equal lien, in other words, they all came together. There was kulam yemechad. The Rambam says it's been again metaltalin. But the Rambam clearly says in Malva V'Leva that who had been benigir karka, that if they all have a lien together and one of them got paid first, so even that's not really to say how should happen. But if one of them got paid first, so nobody can have times. Yeah, halacha dal. I mean, there would be a mokum to think differently because since it's karka, so there is a lien. So you say they all have a lien together. But the Rambam says beferish that even by karka, and if they all have the lien together and one of them got paid first, so he could keep it. Halacha dalet. Mishi girish esishtei v'olav shtar chayv. So he has a wife and a balchev. Ubo balchev v'hoisha ligbes v'hoyole mois v'karka kedei achev aksuba. There's enough to pay both, but there's mois and karka. So the din is balchev netel mois v'isha netel ksubas min karka. Because you want to give the balchev mois is a better payment. So the balchev will soon learn is entitled to the better payment. So again, is nice balchev. This is balchev has first rights. Sai has first rights to get the better payment, and Sai has first rights b'chlal to get a payment. V'im nishal isha klum is titel. V'im lav tidachem mepnei balchev. Why? He owes the isha money. He owes the balchev money. So why are we saying he should pay the balchev and not pay the isha? Shari balchev hifsid v'heitzi moisav. She gave herself for marriage. So there's a chiyuv ksuba, but on the other hand, you can't say she gave something for the marriage. She gave something in marriage. She became a chiyuv ksuba. So the balchev Chazal said that if you have money and you can't pay both, and the shibud there's no earlier shibud on one to the other, so then rather pay the balchev then pay the Isha, pay the Balchev Mois instead of the Isha and give the Isha Karka. V'chein Mishemes, v'yiniach Isha Balchev, and the Karka Shein Badin Kdima. So there's also, now you're going to the same. This was talking about, Halachah was told me you go directly to the person, you go to the same, is also Isha Nitchis Mepnei Balchev. Who gave a Chev Yitchila? The Balchev takes before the Isha. Obviously, we're talking about in a case when there's no Din Kedima in the Shibud. If there's a Din Kedima in the Shibud, so then the Isha, she's Keduma to the Balchev, so she gets. V'kiven shetiknu ageinim, shetikbo Isha Balchev min ha-metaltalin, v'adavi yodua she'ein Din Kedima b'metaltalin, there's never a Din Kedima b'metaltalin. So because of the Chazal weren't misakin that there should be a Din Shibud on metaltalin. They just said that even though there's no Din Shibud on metaltalin, von deswegen the Balchev and the Isha gave him metaltalin. Is im lei meniach metaltalin k'dei litn l'shneim is also neisnu Balchev kol chev yitchila. Balchev always gets paid first. Initially Isha masha titel b'ksubasa titel v'lav tidoch. So the din is that a Balchev gets paid before an Isha. If neither of them have, and if the Isha doesn't have an earlier shibud. So if we're talking about a situation of karka, which they have equal shibud, because the karka was bought later, or we're talking about metaltalin, so they have an equal shibud, there's no shibud. So the Balchev is paid first. And al der if there's karka metaltalin, the Balchev gets the karka and mois, so the Balchev gets the mois, and the Isha gets the karka. That's talking about the Kesubah money, the ikurim, and tesvus. Aber hoyu and tesvus Kesubah. Hoyu Kesubim b'Kesubasa nichsitz in Barzel, and v'tan she'avdu ishalokhem abal. So she brought in money, and now she's tiny that the Baal owes her the money for it. So harei b'nichsitz in Barzel shalok yishar balicheves. That doesn't have a din of a Kesubah because she spent money. She gave him the money. She gave him the nichsitz in Barzel, and therefore v'nishbas shalei lokchayson and v'lei nosna v'lei mochla because she has the stark Kesubah. And v'chilekes and balicheves. So she in the nichsitz in Barzel, she's a regular balaschev. And Mamela, she gets the same of balicheves. She divides together with balicheves. Halacha ches. Mi shemesh mesi girish v'yeshle noshim rabbis. And we're talking about in a case v'ein shom din kdima and v'ein lekidei kol haksubas. So we're talking about there's a number of women. And he has nechasim. He doesn't have enough nechasim to pay everyone, and no one has first claim. No one has a first lien. Is ketzer and chilkins? How could you divide? Is roim? So we say like this. Now lechura, there would be a svara. Just maybe before we learn this, there would be a svara to figure out, how much they owe, and how much percentage of what they owe he has, and give each one a percentage of what he owes them. So in other words, let's say if you owe two people, he owes one person $100 and he owes another person $200. Let's talk in a simple case. And Lepel, he only has 200. So basically, he only has 2/3 of what he owes. So the seichel would be, let's give the 100 2/3 of what he owns, which is 66 and whatever, and let's give the 200 also 2/3 of what he owes him. Memela together, he'll use the 200, and each one will lose equally and gain equally. That would be a svara, and that's taka svara of certain rishenim, which the Rambam himself brings in Malv Leva. And the Rambam says, Lepel, he says, he's not Machri over there. He's not Machri over there, clearly Malv Leva. But over here, the Rambam is clearly Machri, and not like that. And that each one gets the minimum what they get. We'll see how the Rambam divides it. And that's the Shittas Harif, and the Rabbi Takara's argument. The Rabbi over here, Tainas, are you talking? He says that's Shittas Harif, but he doesn't hold this way. But that's Shittas Harif. There's nothing more. Misha Mesi Girish v'yeshli Noshim Rabbis ve'ein shom din Gdima ve'ein lekidei kol haksubas. It's Ketzer Mechilkus. Rein. Im k'shi yecholik hamomen al minyan hanoshim. If you're going to divide all the money that's there according to the number of women, is yagia lepchusa shebem kidei Kesubah, pachas. So the one that has the least will get only as much as a Kesubah is worth or less. So then it's chelkas b'shava. Then you divide everything equally. However, but if there was mammon more than if you'll give each one the amount to be chelkas b'shava. So the one the smaller Kesubah is going to be getting more than really she deserves. So then what we do is azoy. Chilki mimenu, you divide the amount of money, kadesh yagil l'pchusa shebem shir ksubasa. The Rambam is going to say an example, how it works. You divide the money in order that the one that has the smallest ksuba should get her ksuba, and everyone should get an equal amount. And then the chayzes, the chilkis is hamoiser bein hanisaris al derech harishin, and then again you go ahead and divide what's left over after you made that first division. Okay. So he gives an example. Nisha yinosi arba nosh, ksubaso sherishena arba meis, v'shel shniya shleish meis, v'shel shlishis masayim, v'shel revius meya, is nimtza akil elf. He owes 1,000. And the girish kulam imes, and so he was girish kulam imes. So now he owed this ksubis on him for 1,000. Is im hiniach arba meisi pachas? He only has 400. Is chelkes b'shava or less? Chelkes b'shava. V'chol achas netelis meyoi pachas. So the one that gets, the one that has meya got the whole thing, and the others obviously got less. But memela, that's the seder. Knows you give each one, knows in the 400, each one, so each one gets an equal amount, either 400 or less. However, he left over 800. He didn't leave over 1,000. He left over 800. If you're going to take the 800 and divide it equally between the 4 women, so that can't be. That's what he says. You make a division that the smallest one should get her chelik, and everyone should get an equal chelik. So now we already, the first one is gone. She got already her ksuba, and everyone got 100. Now nishar kan arba mezus. Now we have 400 left, and the shalish noshim should be kol achas mem shlashtam mezus. We have 3 women that already received meyazuz, and we have another 400 left in the pot. If you're going to take now, you're going to go ahead and divide the 400. Is nimtzas hashlishis, which only deserves 200, is netelis masai mishleshim mishalish shlish. So she's going to have 233 in the third. By name b'ksubas el masai. You can't do that. Which again, so the one that's owed 200, which is the least right now, will get her portion. So the third one, which was owed 200, so she already got her 200. So now what's left? It's nishar kan meya, shtei noshim. So now we have 100 left, and 2 women which didn't get. One was owed 300, one was owed 400, and each one only got 200. Is chelkin is hameya b'shava ben rishenu shniya. Is nimtza b'yad rishenu masayim v'chamishim. V'chein b'yad shniya. This is the one that was owed 400 and the one that was owed 300. Each one gets 250. V'nimtza b'yad shlishis masayim u'b'yad revius meya. V'alderazeh chelkis la'elim afilohim meya. So even though the pale is coming out, that the ones that had more are losing, and the ones that had less are getting the full amount. But that's the Seder of Chalukah. So B'kitzur, the Seder of Chalukah is that you give, first you give the least, you give the amount, you try to make sure that, if what could be divided will work out to be the amount of the smallest amount that everyone will get, the smallest amount, what's the smallest amount is owed, or less, so then you make that division. And if not, you make a division that the smallest one should get first her whole ksuba, and then we continue as the Rambam said. Push. Halacha tes. Ha'ariv li'isha b'ksubasa. Person was an arif. So normally there's a chayvas. An arif is mischayev. A person says, you lend that person money, and I'll be an arif. So where was the chiyuv? How is the arif mischayev b'dvarim? Pshat is, since that person lent the person money, al pi diburcha. So Mela, the Arif was Nischayev. So now there's a person who wants to get married. The woman is not confident that she's going to have a ksuba. So the person tells the woman, says, listen, you get married to this person, and if he doesn't give you the ksuba, I'll be the Arif. So I'll be the Arif. So the question is, does he become mechuyev in the Arvus? So now he's saying, Arif li'isha b'ksubasa, aval pi shekona miyadi, is einei chayev l'shalom, shemitzvasa, bari lechisra klum. So whereas when a person becomes an Arif to someone that's giving out money, a Malva is giving out money, so then the Arif becomes Nischayev. The Malva gave out money because of the Arif, so the Arif becomes Nischayev. But over here, what did the woman give out? The woman got married. It's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to get married. It's good to get married. So she didn't really do anything for the Arif. So therefore, the Arif doesn't become mechuyev. And the Rambam says, "Afal pi shekonu miyadi." The Rabbi argues. The Rabbi says, if there was a ma'aser kinyan, so then the Arif becomes mechuyev. And the Rambam holds no, that the Arif, even if there's a ma'aser kinyan, it doesn't become mechuyev. However, v'im Arif shel ksubas nehu. If he was an Arif for his son, in other words, his son was getting married, and he became an Arif for his son, v'konu miyadi, and there was also a ma'aser kinyan, is chayiv l'shalom. Why? Sha'av b'glal b'nei. So here we say that even though Lepel, she didn't do anything over from Deswing, there's a gamer makna, even though he didn't really get anything. That's that an Arif with a Kenyan, the Rambam says, for his son, he's Mishabed Atzmi. That's talking about an Arif. And the Kablan Shel Kesubah, however, Kablan Shel Kesubah is Chayiv L'Shalom Afal Pi Shel Ikonim Miyadi. An Arif is not Mechuyev to L'Shalom even if Konim Miyadi. And a Kablan has to pay even leikonim biyodi. Ezu Kablan, zeh she'amar li'isha he nasi lezeh v'ani nesim ksubazu. Earlier he said, "Avalim amar laharini arif ksubazu or ani pireya ksubazu." So then ani chayev ba ukiyetze b'zeh poter. So in other words, an arif is a taj be'etzem. You have a chiyuv ksuba from your husband. Elamai, if your husband doesn't pay, so arif was I'll pay it. I'll be chayev in it. So then that's an arvis. It's an arvis like guaranteeing the chiyuv that there is of the husband. Mashiach in a kalb says, "I'm naming zechunta the chiyuv." That says, "He nosi lezev ani nesim ksubazu." I'm gonna be nosim the ksubas. He was the one that was being makabel on himself the chiyuv ksuba. So that's a chiyuv. Then he's a chiyuv. Elim kein hoy nachmo. Avalim omer hareini orav ksubazu hareini pirei ksubazu ani chayev bo kiyetz b'zeh potter. Because that's Arif. Elim Kain Hoya Aviv, which you said before, an Aviv with a Ma'aser Kinyan it helps Arvis. Now, Hamagarishes Ishtei, a person was Megarishes Ishtei, and there's an Arif or a Kablan. So there's a concern over here like this. There's normally a person's Megarishes Ishtei, he has to pay a Kesubah. If there's an Arif for the Kesubah or there's a Kablan for the Kesubah, so if he doesn't have any money to pay the Kesubah, so they're going to go to the Arif and go to the Kabbalah. The concern is that maybe he's really not interested in divorcing his wife, but they need money. So Mela, they're, so to speak, he's divorcing her, only with the intent of her collecting the money from the Arif or from the Kabbalah, and then they're going to remarry. They'll remarry, so they're not really wanting to get divorced. So the question is, so they're basically trying to do something in order to get the money out of the Arif or the Kabbalah. So what's the Eitzah? The Eitzah is that if he is Yadiran Anor, says that she's not allowed to have Anor from him. And an Eifan that he can be made for it. He can be matir it. So Neder al Das Rabbi. So he makes a Neder Be'efim Kazeh that if he's not interested really in divorcing her, that she can't have Anor from him. So obviously if he really wants to divorce her, so it's not a problem. She's not going to have Anor from him. They're not going to live together. But if their intent is to remarry, so obviously that wouldn't be good for them if he makes such a neder. Nachamo. Hamagaris ish ishtei is yadirane hano v'achar kach tifrek subasim in akablan emaavim hoyarif. Why? Because Shema yachzirena. Maybe he's really going to take her back, and that was the original intent. V'nimtza eisa knunya on the chasv shalzeh. So basically, he's making a knunya on the arif or on the kablan. Halacha yud v'chein hamagdish nechosov v'girish ishtei. So the din is as now she has to have a ksubah. Now she can't take the ksubah from Hegdish. That's the din. She can't take the ksubah from Hegdish. However, if someone's going to come and be poidim in Hegdish, so then she's going to come and take from the poidim in Hegdish. Now this person, when he's poidim in Hegdish and he knows that lepel, this money is going to go to her, so then he's poidim for much smaller value. It's only value of how much a person would want to be poidim in order to pay up the isha de ksubas. So lepel mamish, Hegdish is not really getting the full value of what it's worth, because Lepel, she's going to be able to mon from this item after you're being pointed. So the fact that she's being divorced, and Memela, she has a lien on his nechosim, and Memela, if someone will be pointed, she'll be able to mon it that devaluates the hegdish. So Mamela says, Amagdish nechosav, Girish is again Yadireno Hano. He should be Madra Hano Vacharkach Tifram and Apedam and Hegdish. Why? Because again, Shema Yasa Knunya al Hegdish. They're making a Knunya al Hegdish. How are they making a Knunya al Hegdish? They're making a Knunya on the Pedam and Hegdish. Because the Pedam and Hegdish paid a very, very discounted price for it, because it's obvious that this Pedam and Hegdish is going to have to pay her Kesubah. But if the Kesubah is not really a Kesubah, they're not really interested in getting divorced. So it comes out that they're causing Hegdish. If they want to get divorced, they want to get divorced. So she has a lien on the karka, and while it's a Hegdish, she can't mon it. And if you pay them in a Hegdish, she has it right. That's the normal thing. But if they're not really interested in getting divorced, so the mela, they're making a Knunya ala Hegdish. Aval amagadish seishtei ubo litiv manabel kuches. So the chura also the kuches are losing, just like we're saying a Knunya ala Hegdish, a Knunya al the Arev. So the chura the kuches are also losing. So he says ein mechayven esel hadira el nishbaz v'tirefes v'imrotzes atavzil lebayla. There's no problem. Shekvar yoda the kuches she yeshol ksubas sisha v'heim afsidol atzmo. Because they knew the matzav, and Mamela they knew that you can have such a yin. And Mamela said heim afsidol atzmo. Shalotchu nechosim shetachas shibud. No, they shouldn't have bought this karka. If they were worried, they shouldn't have bought this karka. And since Lepel, the karka is tachas shibuda, so the fact that there's a concern that they're going to make a knunya on these lekuchas, that's what the lekuchas went into the risk. Masha'inkin over here, the Pedam and Hegdish didn't do anything bad. I mean, he was Pedam and Hegdish in order to pay her chayv. And al derech zeb, and again, the Arev and the Kabul. So Memela, it's not like the lekuchas did something bad, but the lekuchas entered into their own risk. Halacha Yudalef, Habal shemocher nechosov, v'achar kach kos ve'ishtel lelekech, dinu dvarim ein le'imoch, v'hiskim olemaisov. And vice two is that this sale wasn't like finalized yet. He sold it, but it was like still pending the sale. Is afal pi shekonu mimeno, is arezu terefes. Shali kosvu le'elu shalitia bino levein baile ktoto. V'yesh lo leima nachas ruach hasisi lebaile. And therefore, what she did wasn't really binding. It wasn't talking about a certain lekech. Mela said that this karka is free. Because they weren't talking about a specific lekech. It was a general. And as a result of that is nifsada mecher. So Memela, she stood up and she said no. And then the chazer abal u'mochel ish acher ben esusoda ben soda acheres v'acher shemocher abal yiskim olamaisov v'konim miyoda she'en lo shibud al soda zu. So then ein yichel litov she'en yichel lei manachas roch asisi lebayli sharei berishena shalei rotzis olei holcha b'tzei bayli. So no, since she showed that she's not necessarily in a matzah, that she's going to do something just because her husband asks. So now when she did it, we know that what she did was for her own decision. She made the decision to do it. Halacha Yud Beis. Mi shahayu le shtei noshim. Someone had two wives. Umacher es sadeu. And he sold one field. And v'kanu min harishena, from the first wife, the wife that was there first, which had the first lien on this field, they were kanu mimena she'en lo shibud al sodazu, ואין הטירפס עשם מן הלקח, והויה הקניין מייל, שאין יחל ליטן בי נחס רוח הסיסי לבייל. So she has two wives, the first wife and the second wife. And from the first wife, he made a kinyan hamoil. Let's say the kinyan was before the mechira. Now, v'achar kach mesabal igirish. So now, he owes both of them a ksubah. So now, hashniya mitzia miyad lekech. The second wife that doesn't have the first lien, she's mitzia miyad lekech, shareliyot likona miyad lekech. No, she has a right to take from the lekech. No, she doesn't have a right to take the lekech before the first. But since the first is not taking, because the first can't take, so Mamela, the second one takes. However, once the second one takes, so the second one comes to the Rishena. Once the second one takes, so the Rishena goes to the second one and says, listen, from the lekeach, I wasn't allowed to take because I wrote Enli Dinu Dvar. But since you took it away from the lekeach to you, I have a right to take away from you. I have a right to take away from you. So the first one could take away from the shniya. Mipnei shehi kodma v'lehi siru shibuda ela mi'ala lekech. So Mela, the first one has a right to take away from the shneer, because from the shneer she has first rights over the shneer. So why does the shneer have it? L'chura she has first rights. Now when the first one gets it back, so then there's chayzar lekech mitziyah miyada. So the lekech comes back and says, "Why are you having the field? L'chura, you wrote to me that dinu dvar mainly. So Mela, you have no right to this field. Shari kanule and v'chayzas chalil." So they keep going back and forth. In other words, the Rishena can't take it out of the Lekech, but the Shnia could. Once the Shnia takes it out of the Lekech, the Rishena takes it away from the Shnia. Once the Rishena takes it away from the Shnia, the Lekech takes it back and bekitzer. So what happens? They have to come to some type of a shara. So in other words, basically, the Shnia has a right to take away from the Lekech. But the Shnia is not going to take away from the Lekech if the Rishena is going to take it away from her. So in Mela, the Shnia is going to have to. The Rishena is going to have to give something to the Shnia in order for them to be Nespias. They have to be somehow be masking. The Shnia needs the Rishena needs the Shnia. And Memela, the Lekech loses. The Pashtus. Yasha Shnur Minayim needs the Rishena and the Shnia. Then the Lekech loses. That's the Pashtus one. The Rebbe said, L'chura has to be understood. Once the Shnia took it, the Rishena has no right to it. So the Shnia took it. The Rishena has rights to the Shnia. L'chura, the Rishena has rights to the field. She forfeited her rights to the field, and the Lekech didn't. The Shnia didn't forfeit her rights to the field. So why is she taking away from the Shnia? I mean, you're saying I have rights before the Shnia. Good, you have rights before the Shnia, but that's your rights in the field. That's you have a rights before the Shnia. You have a rights in the field before the Shnia, but you forfeited those rights. So you have no rights. So what do you mean you have rights before the Shnia? If not for the forfeiting, you would have had rights. I mean, you have to understand. Why do we have right? The Rishena has rights over the Shnia. The Rishena has rights over the field towards the Lekech, but she forfeited her rights. So Mela's Kila, she's Eine. How could she take it away from the Lekech? Because I'm Shnia. That's also connected to Mustama the din we learned before, that the Rishena has to swear to the Shnia has to swear to the Rishena. Somehow or another, they have interaction between themselves. The pastors, each one has only a lien on the Lekech, where Shachas doesn't have to each other. There's a chiyuv shvua to each other. Halacha Yud Gimel. Almana beiman anasuim beiman ha'eresim nishbas u'meicheres mikarka baila v'nefras ksubas. So she's nishbas, and she could be meicher mikarka baila v'nefras ksubas, and it was her baal left over karka, so she could go ahead and sell that karka. Bein bebezn mumchin. That would be a proper bezin. And bein bebezin she'ena mumchin, aber v'hu she'yi o shleisha anoshim nemonim v'yoidim b'shumas hakarka. So no, she could go ahead if she is able to and sell the karka. That's not really hers. It's the karka of the Yisayim. But somehow or another, she has access to it. She goes ahead and sells that karka, either with a bezin mumcha, proper bezin, or even a bezin she'ena mumcha. But there has to be three people that are nemonim v'yoidim b'shumas hakarka. And v'achrayis ha'mecher al nichsei Yisayim. If something goes wrong with this sale, somehow or another the karka is taken away from the buyer, so the achrayis ha'mecher goes on nichsei Yisayim, not on her. There's keilu, like she's keilu a psashliach for the Yisayim to pay her up her chayv. Aval hagrusha, that's been a gay almon. Aval hagrusha litimkre ele bebezn mumchem. A grusha only has a right to sell bebezn mumchem, because by almana we assume that a person doesn't want shetis baze ishtei bebezna. Memele, he's masking kilo chatchila. The deal, the kavanah was that she should be able to sell even out of bezn mumchem. Mashenkin a grusha is leichpasle. He doesn't care. V'chol mecheres bebezn is leitimker ele bachroza. When you sell bebezn, you have to sell bachroza, which is ubihilchas alvo yizbor mishpedei mechiras bezn heichi. What's the seder of mechiras bezn? Aval mecheres shlei bebezn eina tzrich achroza. B'vafel pikein tzrich tzorich shleisha shehin nemonim v'yedim b'shuma. So you need shuma. You need three people that are yedim b'shuma. So there is a sale that's done through a bezn, and that's a bachroza, and then a proper bezn, and then there's a sale not a proper bezn. That's not bachroza. It's nachamo. An almana could go through bezn, a proper bezn, and then it'll go bachroza, or she should go through not a proper bezn, as long as there's three, which is yedim b'shuma. That's an almana. Mashenkin agrusha could only go with a proper bezin, and then obviously it's going to have to be with achraza. Halacha Yudal. Almana shemachra karka b'ksubasa b'nei levanatzma. There was no three people of even three people that are not mumchim that yodim b'shuma. Is imachra shava b'shava, but pale it comes out that what she sold was shava b'shava for the right price. Is mikra kayim v'nishbas shvus almana acha shemachra. However, shemachra lacher. That's only if she actually made a sale. Avalim shama la'atzma, and she comes along. She says, "Listen, he owes me kach v'kach, and this is the value of this karka. So I'll take it for myself, and it'll be kilo. I sold it to myself for the dmei kesubah, and it was the right price. If I'm shama la'atzma liyosa klum afil echriza, even there was a chriyaza, and it was the right price, it's garnished, and they could come and say no, they don't want. That's the hoysuk shubasa masayim. She was owed masayim. Umachra shavim meya b'masayim. So she sold $100 worth, $100 a meya worth for masayim. A shavim masayim b'meya. So either way is niskablik subasa. If she sold meya b'masayim, so she got masayim. If she sold masayim b'meya, so she got only meya, but she used masayim. So meya she niskablik subasa ve'en l'klum. Aber bulvad shetishav shvus alman. That lapel that's owed her the money that she didn't get paid yet. Hois Oshred, it wasn't Mechel. Hois Kesubah Meir, Umachra Shava Meir Vidina B'Meir. She sold it for less than its value. Is Michra Bottle. Vafilo Amra Ani Azes Adina Liyashim. I'll pay back for that extra dinner. But that sale, she didn't have a right to make a sale of Meir Ve'echot because she has no right to Meir Ve'echot. She has only right to Meir. So the whole sale becomes Bottle. Hoisik subasa arba meizuz, umachra lezebimona, shava b'shava, ula'achrin shava meya v'diner b'mona. So in other words, the first three she sold b'mona, which was fine, and the last one she sold with she not the right price, a meya v'diner b'meya. So she took more than she was entitled to. Is shalachrim batal v'shal kulam kaim. In other words, it doesn't invalidate all the sales. Each sale is separate. So the first 100, the first 300s that she sold is beseder, but the last 101 is not beseder. Halacha Yud Zayin. Yesh li isha limke ksubasa a litna b'matona. There's this toma b'chay abal. And what will be the din? Imes abal girsha is yavi halavi yitil. So there's a musig, a woman that's married, and she sells a ksubah to someone. What's pshat? She sells a ksubah. That in the event there would be a matzah that she could have been gave with the ksubah. So that person will come and be gave the ksubah. The meisehi b'chayi baila akedim shenishba. So then Memela, there was never a zman that she could be gave the ksubah because she died b'chayi baila, or even if the baal died but she wasn't nishba because he can't be nishba, she has to be nishba. Is ein leklum. So then he gets nothing. Harei shemochra mixes ksubasa, a mishkina mixes ksubasa, a nosn la'acher mixes ksubasa. So now her husband died. So the din was that an almana could go ahead and sell karka, bino levinatzma, I'm not bino with shleisha that are not mumchim, and almana ksuba, as long as they're yedim b'shuma. Now what happens if she only has mixes and ksuba left? The people that bought the ksuba from her, they have no right to go ahead and start selling the karka of the mess for their rights in the ksuba. That was a special din for the almana, that a person doesn't want that his almana should be tizbaza bebezin. Memela, she could sell it even without a bezin shel mumchim. So that's certainly the people that bought a ksuba can't do that. Mashenkin, the woman that sold the ksuba, so she only sold part of the ksuba. Part of the ksuba she still has. So that part that she still has, she could go ahead and sell the karka in order to pay up what she's entitled to, the part that she still has. That's his din. Arisha machra mixes ksubasa. A mishkina mixes ksubasa. A nosnul acher mixes ksubasa is mecheres mikarka baila v'tigba hashar ben bebezin mumchim ben b'shar namona. Umecheres liksubasa afil upam rabbi. She doesn't have to sell all of it at the same time. Ben bebezin ben b'shleisha namona. Ben bebezin ben b'shleisha namona v'yed mishumas akar. And that was the one before that. She sold one for 100, another one for 100. No, she doesn't have to sell it all at the same time. She could sell part of it. So there's two din. One din is that she's only owed part of it, so she could sell the karka of her husband that left over to the Yisemim for the ksuba that she left over. Now that is that she could sell to bislavais. Halacha yutes. Hamicheres ksubasa bein la'acher and bein lebayla li'ovda shar tinoya ksuba. The fact that she sold the ksuba even if she sold it to her husband, she doesn't lose the shar tnoi aksuba. Bim hoyela ben zocher, so is yeirish keneged aksuba azay shenimkara. Minichsi aviv yeser al chelke kidin tnaiza. So if she sells her ksuba, either she sells it lacherim or she sells lacherim. So the other tnoya ksuba that she's entitled to, the mezenes and the fact that pidyena, all these dinim she still has. She taka sold her ksuba, the monim mosayim, but on the other end, all the other inyanim she has, and also the ksuba is b'nedichin she has. Because if lepel mama she sold her ksuba, and lepel she died first, so the ksuba was never really collected by her or by anyone. And now, when the father dies, when her husband dies, so her bnim dichrim, the heavy lechiminoi, which she had together with him, so they get that ksuba yeser al their chelik in the Yerusha. So that's the din of mecheres ksubas. Aval ha-mecheres ksubas lebaila. If a woman is mecheres ksubas lebaila, is of the kol tnoya ksuba. So she loses all the tnoya ksuba. It's like a zilzul. She's mecheres ksubas. I don't need it. Va'afila mezenis ein le'olav. Because mezenis has a din also of ksuba. We learned earlier that b'am is mezenis the chachiv deiraisa. But lepel, since they linked it with ma'aser yadayim, so it became a din like ksuba, like a tnai ksuba. Va'afila mezenis ein le'olav. U'mecheres ksubasa ein atzricha kinyan v'lei edem. There's no din of kinyan who knows. In order for her to be meichel ksuba, she could just be meichel. Kishar kol ha-meichel she'ein atzrichim le'edem v'lei kinyan. B'chlal for mechila, you don't need edem in order to affect the mechila, and you don't need a ma'aser kinyan. Al b'dvarim bulvat. It has to be a real kinyan, a real mechila. Who she had dvarim shadas she meches aleim. You know, she taka made him. She was meichel the ksuba. Leah divrei schek v'hisel, divrei tema lebedas nechin. So in other words, if a woman willingly with das nechin goes ahead and is meichel ksuba, so she loses all her tnoya ksuba. She loses all her tnoya ksuba, including mizenis. Mashenkin, if she sells her ksuba, even if she sells her ksuba to her husband, so she still retains all the tnoya ksuba, the din mizenis. Al kopan b'chai, we'll soon learn about it. And next period, and also that the ksuba is b'nedichrin. Also, there's still musig of ksuba is b'nedichrin. So if she dies first, so her b'nedichrin will yashin the ksuba that she would have gotten from her husband, even though she sold it.